Hey everyone, welcome back to after a long hiatus, a new episode of What Are You Drinking, our weekly podcast about gaming news and whatever we feel like talking about, whether that may be random subjects or hotly contested news on the internet. This is just a chance for some friends of mine to get together and let's discuss some games. A while ago in one of the earlier episodes, I wanted to have a recurring topic, and I called it the state of the industry. So I thought, since there was a long hiatus since our previous episodes, I thought I'd revisit that, considering how different the gaming landscape has become in the past few years. For those of you who don't know, our last podcast was almost a year and a half ago now. So I'm hoping that enough has changed for us to invite some new conversation. So I'm joined by my. I think so. I think our last podcast was around December 2015. So trying to make a comeback here and seeing.
We've been busy.
Yeah, clearly. So have re-energized though, and have a whole lot of thoughts, and have grown quite a bit internally. So has the gaming industry. So hopefully we have a lot to say. I guess I'm going to ask the panel. Starting off, I want to talk about the state of the industry, and I wanted to especially focus on the fact that we've had quite a few games in 2017 that have been reviewed extremely well. And what's interesting is that you look at past years and you notice that a lot of games, the prime time to release a game seems to be like that September to November bracket, trying to capture that Black Friday.
Like Oscar season.
Kind of, yeah, in the same way. It's trying to capture that Christmas, Black Friday market, right? And for the longest time, like your January to March releases have been like leftover, I don't want to get in the way of Call of Duty, Battlefield kind of games. But it seems like 2017 is the first year where gaming has really kind of said, screw calendars. We can release a good game whenever we want. So I guess that's my first question to the panel is, do you think timing matters when it comes to the success of a game in terms of release dates?
No,
Absolutely.
personally not. See, we have two different extremes, so let's discuss.
Go ahead.
The Overwatch Battleborn. That's the game.
Overwatch Battleborn, yeah.
Battleborn was announced its release date. Overwatch launches its beta. I think there was a discussion on Reddit about it today, where that was absolutely 100% calculated, because Battleborn isn't really that big of a community at all.
Mm-hmm. You think it was dead on the water because of its release date, very close proximity to Overwatch?
Well, it was more or less, people commented Blizzard probably knew that they were going to release and then went with, held up, did the free weekend when they announced their release date.
Right.
Towards Overwatch instead.
Right. What do you think, Kyle? I guess I heard you kind of say the exact opposite, right?
Well, I mean, I don't know.
Not with conviction, though. He nodded. Nah.
Yeah, I don't know. For me, like, it just seems more and more now that, like you said, like there used to be a time when they would avoid, like a movie release, right? You avoid certain times to have to compete with the big guys and stuff like that. But I feel like the gaming industry we're in now, maybe more so the big titles, but I feel like we're just so flooded with awesome titles now. A lot of people just get a list. I mean, the problem is it's who's got the measuring stick, right? I mean, the gaming. I mean, when you from the software developer's point of view, I'm sure, yeah, it's a big deal. I mean, from the gamer's point of view, we don't give a shit personally. I mean, you know what I mean? So it's like I say no in the aspect of I'm thinking like, well, if Zelda, like if I had a Switch, Zelda comes out and Horizon comes out, that's two games. I mean, they're two big games. They're going to take up a lot of your time, but like two games that I'm definitely going to want to play, and timing doesn't really matter for me, kind of thing. If they come out at the same time, like probably going to play both. But as far as the developers go, right, you're going to probably buy one over the other before you're eventually going to buy it. But for the initial launch, like numbers, I mean, you know what I mean?
I think you raise a good point, because I think at the day Horizon is good because Horizon actually pushed their review date earlier to avoid Breath of the Wild reviews coming out the gate, and I think it worked in their favor. And I think that's the common point, is that if you review well and if you have a good game, then people will wait for your game. They will move on. Like, I don't think you're going to see a Horizon price drop anytime soon. It reviewed extremely well against Zelda, and people will definitely be picking that up after the fact, you know. I think it more comes into the conversation when you have things like Titanfall versus Battlefield, and I think that's a game that really could have benefited from either releasing earlier or later than that October-November market.
Yeah.
But is it because it's October or because of what came out in October that
I think EA screwed Titanfall over by releasing it alongside Battlefield 1 as well as in that heavily crowded October-November bracket.
Yeah.
with October just
I mean,
came
look at the price, look at the player base, right? I mean, sure, it's a dedicated community, but it's a game that's been reviewed so well, but unfortunately, it only has like an audience of 3 to 5
it's wild. It got excellent reviews. It exceeded Titanfall 1 in every way.
Exactly.
But you're right. It just didn't get the fan base.
Yeah, I can't help but get the feeling like it would have been a game way more successful, even if it released in like September, or if they couldn't push it earlier, then maybe even like January. You know?
Yeah.
But
I just wonder, like, your specific question was related to time of year rather than like relation. A lot of the examples we're drawing are like, oh, this was a bad release because this other game came out, or this was particularly busy this year. Like, I don't know. I'm just not hearing a lot of like, this month is bad or this month is good. And like, I made the joke of Oscar season, but like, there's no like, yeah, there are the Video Games Awards and there's a couple other equivalents, but nobody makes a big deal out of them. Like, they're not actually the Oscars of video games. So there's not really like that yearly time scale that exists. And
I agree with you too. And I think you touched on when someone said, maybe at launch or something, but I think it settles over time, like you said. And
yes,
I think a great example of that is even with some of the really good games that I just bought with the Freedom Bundle, and we're talking games that are like 1 to 2 years old, and I mean, I'm still game, right? Like,
yeah.
I mean, there's always the conversation to have for patient gamers who wait long enough for like the sales and stuff. But Glenn raised a good point, because like, we're talking about games going against each other, whereas the original question was kind of framed more towards like months of the calendar year.
I don't think. Yeah, go ahead.
No, I was going to kind of go off the same point, which is I think calendar year is becoming less and less prevalent because this industry is becoming so large that you literally cannot fit all these big games within that, quote unquote rush months, right? So you have these like big budget games that are literally going to be dropping every single month of the year. There's no point in pushing them towards this like these pressured times of October, November.
Yeah, right. This year's a good example of it. I mean, look at the lineup this year, and they're just spread fully through the year. Like nothing. I don't. There's still going to be the case where I think companies rush a game just to get it out at a certain time, but I think they're putting too much stock in that now. I mean, look what happened to Mass Effect. That game was probably 5 months too early.
Out. Yeah.
That's a great example. That's a great example because
easily 5 months too early, and they probably reacted to the release dates of all the open world games that came out.
Absolutely. And you know what? Who knows what goes on behind the scenes, because it clearly seems to be a case of like, we need to release it in fiscal year 2016 and get the numbers to our investors, and who knows what happened behind the scenes.
They answer to way more people than like
absolutely
a lot of people like to admit, right? I mean,
but the problem is when games do that, and when they sacrifice the game quality to appease their investors, you find that the gaming industry and the people who buy these games, they'll forget about the game way faster. Like, look at games like The Division and like now Ghost Recon. Even like, people will forget about these games. I think even Mass Effect, like, we're gonna move on to the next big thing when it releases in the next month or so. Like, if it was polished, we'd still be talking about it. And a perfect example of that is a game like Breath of the Wild. It was released over a month ago, and we're still talking about it today.
Yeah, and Mass Effect, a game like Mass Effect, like you said, they forget. Mass Effect's doing damage control right now.
Absolutely.
They rushed a patch. It came out today, actually. This is Thursday. Yeah, this is the 6th today. Yeah, and it came out today, and they said over the next 2 months, like, they're going to be releasing patches to increase, performance issues, glitches, UI stuff.
Increased performance issues.
Or sorry. We
don't have enough performance issues. we
need more memes on the internet.
More people jumping out the ship.
Let's see if we can get more of it.
Like
no such thing as bad press.
Guys, look at all these.
Is hurting.
Yeah, look at all these YouTube videos. We lied about our glitches. We got to get more of this. It's they're gonna all kinds of patches, even addressing things that take a long time to fix, like the character facial model stuff, like they're trying to work on, and that's going back to the fucking framework. Like, I don't know, it's but like you said, like that's a game that they might be able to salvage that, because it is likely going to be a trilogy again, and the title of Mass Effect's not going to go away. But I know like other games, they don't survive that as easily.
Yeah, look at, I can name some off right at the bat, like No Man's Sky, The Division.
Oh god,
but
yeah.
then you have examples that do work, right? Like Rainbow
Yeah.
Six Siege and Counter-Strike Go. Like, these are games that released really poorly and then have now become this juggernaut because
Siege
the community is so
yeah.
dedicated.
Yeah,
Because there's a
Siege made
good
big comeback.
framework behind it, right? That's the idea.
No Man's
But-
Sky, God. Ugh.
Yeah, I know. What a disaster.
Down
I
a
guess.
fucking decade.
Yeah, exactly. It needed more time than that. Jeez. But I guess that's a good segue to talk about my next topic, which was kind of going to be about the rise of Japanese gaming. And I'll be honest to our listeners, we probably haven't played about 90% of these games, so it's mainly based
All
on
of our fans
OpenCritic
at
and
Spartak.
Metacritic scores and things like that. But I have noticed a high movement towards well-polished Japanese games, and I think Japanese games get a bit of a bad flack because they seem to be a bit behind when it comes to understanding what Western audiences want. And that's prevalent today too. You see a lot of streaming issues and things like that people are coming about. But in terms of the games themselves, if we just judge them on their art and game design on their own, you have games like, just in the past 4 months, you've had games like Gravity Rush 2, Neo, Nier, Automata, Legend of Zelda: Breath of the Wild, and recently Persona 5. And these are all games that released in the last 4 months from Japanese developers that are getting absolutely outstanding results on Metacritic. It's amazing to see, and I think this is the renaissance of Japanese gaming. I think for the longest time they've gotten this like bad flack for being behind with the times and not understanding what Western gamers want. But I guess this is a good chance to talk. I guess I wanted to frame this question towards Dan because he's the only one who's played Breath of the Wild. But where do you think this comes from? Do you think that Nintendo with Breath of the Wild has? Do you think they're listening? Do you think they're playing games from Western developers that are successes and trying to implement that into their games?
Well, no, the main guy for Breath of the Wild definitely said he enjoyed playing Skyrim, and like years ago when they were first talking about it, they even mentioned they wanted that open world game. Like, if you see it, you can go there.
Mm-hmm.
So they took it and made it better for sure.
It's
Or
funny
with their own ideas.
Right.
There are plenty of flaws in the game for sure. Like not enough enemies is a fairly big issue. But
You make a good point about listening to their audience, because at the end of the day, like they listen to like the most common trope when it comes to open world games is that if you see it, you can go there. Like, we've literally been hearing that for the last 7 years, right?
Yeah.
Skyrim too. Like,
That
when they
originated
market
in Skyrim, right?
exactly. Well, even
Maybe
before
not.
that the trope of see that mountain, you can go there has been so prevalent in the gaming industry. And it's funny, like when I heard Anuma talk about that in E3, I thought this is such a tired trope. Like, why are you going through this? But the fact of the matter is, both Horizon and Zelda have both done a great job of like refining this open world genre in different ways, right? So I guess I want to focus on the Japanese side, which is Breath of the Wild, and the most important thing that it does is that it respects the player's intelligence, right? So many games nowadays, when it comes to these open world games, they're just collectathons. They're just like, go to this point in the map and just follow it. Whereas Zelda focuses so much more on like,
Kill 10 rats, baby.
it's less kill 10 rats and more like actually use your intelligence, and it makes you feel like a kid again. It makes you feel like you don't know what you're doing and you got to talk to your friends about it.
The best thing is always the quest markers in Breath of the Wild. They don't show you where to go at all. They show you where you picked up the quest, and for the most part, that's it. Whereas even recent games like Final Fantasy 15 this is your quest, go to this point. Okay, let me mark it on the map for you.
Mm-hmm.
That is
It's more about looking at the map than it is the world, right?
Yeah, it's less hand holding. I mean, you have to find but I think at the same time too, you have to strike a balance because I mean, it's very easy to make that extremely frustrating, right? I mean, it sounds like in Breath of the Wild, you get a balance of it doesn't give you, but it's like it's very intuitive to figure it out. But in some games I know I've played where it's like if there's no quest markers, it's just a nightmare to try and find your way. Like there's no guidance at all.
That's a really good point because I think it's not just enough to be like no quest markers, now your game is amazing. You have to build the world around that. So you have to provide the clues and you have to have this world that invites you to explore it, you know? I think if we were to like turn the map off on a game like Watch Dogs or The Witcher, I think it would be a very difficult experience. I think the player would get quite frustrated because there's no landmarks, there's no like reason to explore. And I think that's what the Zelda developers did so well.
Yeah. Witcher 3 balanced that way really well too, the quest system.
Yeah, that's the beauty of the HUD and all that stuff, right? Like that really is the talent of the developer. Pardon me?
Did you get a marker in that game or what?
They have like this like trail that you follow, but so at least you don't focus on your mini map, but you're still following this like ghost trail to get to your marker if you do get lost, and you can choose to use it if you want to. That's the idea.
Okay.
Cool.
Anyways, in Zelda, it's quite open. Like you have to talk to people and you have to like listen to their key points, and then you can kind of go to the area, and then it's up to you to explore. So it really respects your intelligence to find this stuff.
Do a little sleuthing.
Exactly. The best example I can give you is like when you were a kid and you were trying to discover the water, like how to figure out the water temple in Ocarina of Time. You had to go to you went to school and you would like talk to your friends about how the hell you do this, and like maybe someone would give you a tidbit that would help you out. It's that kind of feeling, you know.
I like that.
Mm-hmm. It's definitely something to be praised.
And the developers, I know the developers of Zelda said all Zelda games going forward are going to be open world, at least for the foreseeable future.
I mean, the blueprint's there, right? Like the blueprint's definitely there.
Why not, right? I mean, they've found a formula that works. They found the formula that has made the Nintendo Switch wildly successful.
Yeah, and in terms of risks,
Zelda would have been nothing.
Absolutely. In terms of risks, can you imagine this? Like, this is a like in terms of the Switch launch itself, it's pretty weak, but it had the juggernaut behind it. It had Zelda behind it. Like, this is a game. Yeah. This is a series that has been living on the tropes and it's like legacy since A Link to the Past. And now it finally decided to change it on the launch of a new console. Like, that's ballsy as hell for this to be the game that all future open world games is going to focus on. Like, that's commendable, I have to say.
Yeah,
it worked.
Nintendo just has to follow through now. I mean, they got their boost, right? They got tossed up, and now they got to keep going.
Absolutely.
And
no, yeah, that's absolutely right. And I think that's a great segue into our last topic of the day, which is the boost, and talking about how these game companies and these console manufacturers are going to boost going forward their player base and everything. So we have the breaking news that we have today is the Xbox Scorpio announcement. And
thought it was
in terms of Scorpio, yeah, it's actually filled with scorpions. So great console for you to buy in case you're not. Actually, I was going to say arachnophobia, but that's for spiders. I actually don't know what it is for scorpions.
Mm-hmm.
Anyways, the Scorpio got the Digital Foundry exclusive reveal, which I think in itself is actually quite an interesting reveal, because you have this company that's well known for like tearing down and analyzing each part of a system. So it seems like Microsoft is pretty ballsy to be like, hey, we know what you're willing to do. Come over to our studio and check out the Scorpio and write what you must about it. It shows confidence in their product, don't you think?
I think so. I mean, considering that the Xbox One pretty much has been dismantled by the PS4. I mean, they had to do they've been poring over this obviously for a while, and they released an interesting statement. I mean, when you hear about their statements about the system, they're saying, they basically admitted, they're like, we know, like with Xbox 360, it's like developers loved it. People like it was a great system, and then Xbox One, we just kind of fell off the cliff a little bit. And, PS4 gained popularity and people like, we just kind of, dropped the ball, and now we're playing catch up, and we want to give people what they deserve. So, yeah, it's ballsy.
Did you guys read about with the Scorpio? They wanted to just do updates, so it would be like a PC, and you'd get a new version of the Xbox to play with instead of.
You're talking about like a more modular.
Like the next games would only need at least Xbox One, or eventually it would be you need Xbox 5 or whatever the next one's going to be. So games would be compatible with multiple generations.
Right. So basically, there's no more generations. It's just upgrading your Xbox, like the cell phone model. Makes sense.
Yeah.
Why do you think? Why do you think
it to the iPhone?
Why do you think it's a good idea, Glenn?
Because PCs rock, and that's what they're taking a page out of the PC booklet.
So that was going to be my next. That was going to be my next arguing point. Is if you own a PC, then what's the pull of the Scorpio? Because PCs rock, as you said.
Nothing,
why would someone?
There's no point in any consoles.
So at the end of the day, exclusives become a big game, but we know for a fact that Microsoft is going to be releasing their quote-unquote play anywhere titles on both Xbox and PC. Now, who knows if those PC titles will be locked behind some kind of weird store that's not Steam or whatever. But at the end of the day, yeah, why? What's the Scorpio for? Is there enough of a market for the Scorpio?
Don't know.
I don't know, man, because I mean, we talk about upgrading the consoles it goes, but also the statement from them, they were saying that, they've heard people want the latest and greatest technology, and they're looking at it as like cell phones that people are constantly upgrading, and they want to offer those upgrades. So I don't know. I see it as like, I'm a little more skeptical to the whole thing. Like, in a world where I feel like we're constantly saying I don't want to buy a console every 3 years, or however long it may be, you have a company coming out and saying people want this, they want to buy consoles constantly. It just doesn't make sense.
Unless you live in Brazil.
Yeah. But it's, I don't know, and people already bashing the fact that there's, it's got very impressive stats, and the one thing Xbox releases, it does 4K 60 frames per second on Forza, but people are like, Forza is the least demanding game on the racket, right? It's like, sure, you can boast that you can run Forza at 4K at 60 FPS, but they're like, nobody's really taking, swallowing that pill until they hear something more impressive, right? Because they're like, you can run, you can run full HD like 1080p 60 frames per second on an Xbox One, and they're like, that's not. So it's not that impressive, but I don't know. The market's hard because PCs are there.
I think it's I think that you make a good point, because I think we are like the podcast making, internet dwelling people who like constantly look up specs to stuff are not the market for the Scorpio. I think that we all have these. We all have PCs. We know how to upgrade them. I think we underestimate how many people are willing to go to the store and be like, "Give me the most powerful console you have." If that's not the PS4 Pro, then I want the Xbox Scorpio, and they're gonna buy it. They're gonna buy it just because it's stronger than the PS4 Pro. I mean, I think that's why the PS4 did so well in the first place, because as soon as people saw that it was stronger than the Xbox One, that's what they wanted.
I mean, we can all admit that we know some filthy casuals. They're out there, and it's really unfortunate, but they're a huge, swath of the market.
Another filthy casual. We just played against one.
Filthy casuals.
No, that's absolutely true.
Yeah, I mean, look at the specs of the Xbox Scorpio. I mean, it's like, we look at this, we're like, okay, cool. like it doesn't blow us away just because we play on the PCs we play on. We're like, well. Yeah.
I mean, you make a good point, because at the end of the day, if you do compare one, if you compare it exactly the same, you're talking about I always get freaked out when I look at the enthusiast market on PC, because they're insane. Like, these guys drop thousands of dollars.
$4,000 a year.
Yeah, exactly. Like, literally, like Nvidia is literally like gypping these people, because like you have they've released in the last 6 months, they've released the GTX 1080. Let me start over. They released the Titan, the 1080, the 1080 Ti, and now the Titan X. They literally just announced today. These are all $800 to $1,000 video cards that they've announced in the span of 6 months. Like, I know the video card community moves fast,
Apple.
but these are all selling out. They're all selling out because people cannot have these video cards fast enough.
Yeah, it's scary. It scares me to see the video, like the PC hardcore PC gaming video card.
What's there to say that Scorpio doesn't have that audience too? That because like console is a huge market, right? Like we all know that console gaming isn't dead because the PS4 has sold 50 million and the Xbox has sold 25 million. Like it's crazy how so there's definitely a market for this Scorpio. The question is, will Microsoft back it up with games? Because at the end of the day, that's all that matters. Glenn said it perfectly. Why would I buy an Xbox when I have a PC? Microsoft, prove us wrong, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, at the very root of it, when you talk about like the Play Anywhere games, I mean, isn't that killing your own system? I mean,
yeah, like it's ballsy, right? Ballsy for the CEO of their games division to say that.
Yeah,
in a way, he's got a good point because like, why do you look? Clearly, Microsoft wants a piece of the Steam pie. I think that's what they're trying to go for. Like they're upset that Steam is such a juggernaut, and I agree. Like no, there shouldn't be a monopoly, right? Like when you have a monopoly, you have control, and that's not what we want. But offer a product that's just as good, and maybe we'll consider it. And definitely the Play Anywhere aspect is a huge part of that, right? Like if I can play both games on my Xbox and my PC seamlessly and transfer cloud saves and all that stuff, yeah, that's intriguing.
And here's the one thing that I feel Xbox still does, and it drives me. I completely understand why the console industry does it and Sony does it, but it's still frustrating from a gamer point of view, is the backwards compatibility. And I know, like it says, like even with the Scorpio patches, the new console will seemingly run all Xbox One and 360 backwards compatible games better than on standard S hardware. Like, so, you know what I mean? Like Microsoft at least has done one thing that I like, and it hasn't completely erased the previous library and made you buy new. You know what I mean? Like it's you still play your old games, and it's a small thing. It really doesn't paint the big picture of the question, but it's one of those things where with Sony, it just drives me nuts. I mean,
you know what, Kyle? I think that goes into what Dan said before, and I think it will paint the big picture going forward, because backwards compatibility wasn't a big issue going into this generation, but I think with Microsoft's introduction of the backwards compatibility program, and especially with that Game Pass thing, which is like the Netflix version of games,
which is fantastic.
I think this is a great competition. And I think because Dan mentioned like maybe there won't be any more Xboxes after this. Maybe this will just be like upgrade your Xbox One.
Or the Xbox will just be like the iPhone.
Exactly.
Well, that's what they're thinking as well. Is like like the iPhone style stuff.
Right. So you know what? I think that's fair. I think it's a great way to look at the console market in general. And I think Microsoft's. I mean, first off, competition is good, right? Like I think Microsoft's going at this the right way. They're behind, so they're gonna fight, and it's only gonna help consumers out at the end of the day.
And I mean, going back to the Switch, I mean, you talk about where's the market? Like where's the market for the Scorpio? That's one thing where you still can go back to Nintendo and say, I see what you're doing, is because they understand what market they need to go to, and that is they're not going to match up against the PC. They're not going to match up against Power. They're offering a style that's going to sell consoles, and then now they have to back it up with game library, of course. But they're taking a different approach to it. That's saying, we have to offer people something that will complement their PC, not go up against, complement their other consoles and not go up against them. And,
Yeah, that's a great point to end on. I think the Switch is doing some exciting things. I think it's focusing on the portability aspect of gaming. Even though most people don't like, I don't know what the split is, but I think it's cool to see that you can play this game at home or on the go, and I think Switch will always have a place. And Nintendo is doing a lot of smart things with the Switch, so it's exciting to see. But we'll see how the gaming. Pardon me.
It's like, except for putting the charging port in the right spot.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Fair enough. That's a topic for another day. But I guess I want to close on the fact that the state of the industry it seems to be an exciting place for 2017. I think E3 will be very interesting. I think we'll see a lot of aggressive game announcements from Microsoft because they've definitely been lacking in the first party area. And there is a point to be made on having third party games play exceedingly well on the Scorpio. I think the enthusiast market will be very interested in playing a game like Battlefront, Call of Duty, Red Dead Redemption 2. All of these games are multi-platform, but if they play at 4K 60 FPS, yeah, I think I could see a lot of people buying the Scorpio. What do you guys think?
Somebody else take this one first. I'm gonna think about it.
Yeah, probably.
I think the enthusiast market is interested in numbers like that, 60 FPS. I mean, I think we see enough of the backlash on the internet when something is not 60 FPS.
Yeah.
So,
It's a sexy stat. Who wants to see that?
it's a sexy stat. No, that's
4K 60 FPS. Somebody's gonna play that, consistently on his gaming base.
Kyle, you
Of course,
talking
people are
about
gonna
your
want that. Well, mainly, but I mean, I want to throw some other games in there too.
Yeah,
I'm going straight for VR for porn.
Yeah, there you go. Get the 4K 60 FPS porn app, and you're good to go. Xbox. Straight from What Are You Drinking's mouth. We got the advice for you. Free consulting.
We missed one important thing in this podcast, and that is, what are we drinking?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Just to remind our listeners, whoever they may be, all three of them, what are you drinking? Yeah, well, and our grandmother, and like as we mentioned in our previous podcast, we are still open to partnerships for drinking companies. So please let us know.
We could all be drinking Pepsi rather than Pepsi, marginalizing minorities.
Just get that Kendall Jenner recruitment, and we're good to go, right?
No, we're gonna sub her out.
You guys may not know that one. Sorry.
Swap.
So I'll remind our viewers one more time. We are What Are You Drinking? A group of friends who just like to talk about gaming on a weekly basis about whatever we feel like. It may be about today's news. It may be about some random topic that we just enjoy chatting about. Bottom line is we love games. We don't play a lot of them, to be honest. But when we do, we absolutely get sucked in. So please join us again. I will go around the table, the online table, and ask everyone, what are you drinking?
Just go around the table.
Okay, I'll go.
Go.
Just a simple glass of little Canadian Club, right?
One rock
on its own? Yeah, any rocks?
Just on its own. No, neat.
Damn.
Nice,
Neato.
classy.
Neat. Okay. Next.
Right on.
Good call.
Good on ya.
What about you, Mike?
I'm actually having a pale ale brewed by yours truly.
Oh shit.
For our listeners, keep an eye on this one because you may be drinking his sweet bottles one day.
We're gonna partnership with his brewery. Actually,
Yeah, we might actually we might be our first sponsor.
I'm in.
Exclusive partnership. What are you drinking? We signed a very aggressive deal.
Yeah, I'll send you
100% of profits from
That's awesome, man. That's really cool. I definitely wanted to talk about it more on a future podcast, but I want to hear more about the whole experience in general.
Sure.
Maybe we should have a dedicated podcast just to talk about your whole. I'm sure you have some stories behind the brewing process that you want to share.
Just a little bit
Sure.
of like.
Right on.
Oh, what about you, Dan?
I've got a McLean's Pale Ale today.
like the magazine.
Nope, it's Grey County, Ontario.
Canadian as fuck.
Yeah, man. It actually came free with a subscription. It's a pretty cool deal.
Just a six pack though, you know.
Yeah. What about you, Glenn?
I'm having a local brew of Velvet Fog.
Local brew.
Oh, you're up on that dreaming tree?
Not brewed by me, but locally.
Gotta support the locals. And I myself am sharing a nice glass on my copper mug of gin and ginger. Great combination. Ginger ale, sorry.
Calm down there, Lou Bega.
Share.
Yeah. Okay, I want to thank everyone once again for tuning in, as well as our panel for chiming in with what has become quite a bit long. I apologize. I think I hit my 30-minute cap, but if not, I apologize. And we'll see you next time for another riveting episode of What Are You Drinking? Thanks, guys.